All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. In this video, I want to talk with you about this book, The Element, which is about education, broadly speaking, about education and several other connected topics. In general, the way I think about education is very similar to how I think about therapy. I think education and therapy, they share some important common elements. They both challenge you, they both push you out of your comfort zone, they both might give you this sense of inconvenience, that you're being inconvenienced by them. But in both of them, we also find healing. We go to them for healing. And with both of them, you at least get the sense that you're starting to move in the direction of healing, which also means becoming whole. Both of them they have the purpose of making us whole, whole persons, whole individuals. And this is, I think, fundamentally what this book is about. So the full title of the book is The Element: How Finding Your Passion Changes Everything. It's written by Ken Robinson and Lou Aronica. Ken Robinson is the primary author. So I probably will refer to the author as one singular individual. Sometimes to both. Okay, let's switch. Let's try to switch between singular and plural. Author's author. The late Ken Robinson was an advocate of educational reform. And as we get to their later works, their later books, Aronica and Robinson, we get to books that are about schooling and the role of creativity, the place of creativity in schools and education, public education. So educational reform. Ken Robinson was really concerned about that. But you cannot reform something without first understanding it. And in this book, he is trying to give us an understanding of education. He wants to get to the heart of education, and he asks what happens when education is successful, when there's success in education. What do we mean by that? The work of education, when it is successful, he argues, doesn't give us a feeling that something is being imposed on you, that you're forcing something on yourself, or the teachers are forcing something on you or your kids. There might be moments like that feel like that, but in general, and especially the fruits of the process of education, should feel natural. It should feel as if you're participating in something that is not foreign to you. It's not foreign to who you are, what you are. It is you. The thing you're doing, the thing that you're learning, is expanding you. It's helping you discover more about yourself. And one consequence, just one of the consequences of that, is that expansion of self changes your experience of time and how you feel, you experience yourself through time. So generally speaking, this is the topic of the book, education, its relation to self and holistic education. So now for the rest of the video, let me talk about the things that I liked in the book, things that I disliked about the book, and then I will end with a couple of recommendations. And with my recommendations, I will tie them to specific topics. So if you're interested in one of the topics I touch on, you might just pick one of the recommendations I talk about. So first, the things that I liked about The Element. The first thing I liked is that the book is about education, but it doesn't focus on just individuals. It is not individual oriented. That would be a very narrow treatment of education. It is about, more broadly, it is about culture of education, and possible cultures of education. It also touches on sociology and politics of education, and the role of education in communities. So education as a force that helps shape communities and the future of communities. The second thing I like about the book is how it connects education to well-being and how crucial that connection is. When you learn about yourself, when you learn about your strengths, when you learn to do something well, when you find that you're good at something or you can be good at something, that comes with an experience of well-being and joy and play, and it's healthy, and you experience something healthy. It's not just your health, it's the health of a community that you're participating in. And that those two are also not separate from each other. Your health and the health of the community are not separate. And going back to the main point, education is not separate from well-being. I also liked the book as a general critique of convention and conventional thinking, that it would be a mistake to rely on the wisdom of convention, only on the wisdom of convention, because by doing that, you stop thinking. And the same applies to therapy. In therapy, too, if a therapist or a teacher only follows conventional formula, the result is that they're actually removing themselves from situation. They're removing themselves, and they're replacing themselves, their own agency, with a conventional formula or a conventional system. And what that does is that it creates a bubble, and they are within a bubble at that point with their beliefs and all their assumptions, and they have lost contact with what is happening in concrete reality. And because of that, as a result of that, that severance with reality, that bubble will lead to more vulnerability, and the bubble will burst eventually with a more violent and more traumatic encounter with reality. That's what happens with very rigid educational systems, therapeutic systems, financial systems. All of them, they show more attachments to their beliefs and assumptions than to what is actually happening. The last thing I really liked, last but not least, certainly not least, what I really enjoyed and this resonated with me, as the kids say, resonated. Uh, when you have a passion for something, you're more flexible in how you deal with it. So if you're passionate about psychology or philosophy or mathematics, you will find ways of playing around, not just doing what is necessary, not just doing the bare minimum, but you find alternate ways of approaching the subject, alternate ways of solving problems. And when one way is taken from you, you always find other ways of continuing to engage. So why is that important? Because we live in a time where technological means of relating to our subject matters continue to change. So the way you, for example, do statistical analysis might change drastically. The way people use technology to do data analytics or data science. If there's a radical shift and you're not passionate about those subjects, then you are more vulnerable, because your lack of interest means that you will not flexibly adapt to the new technologies. Somebody who has genuine passion and is genuinely attached to a topic, with those radical shifts in technology or means or ways of mediating their relationship with what they are passionate about, they will be resilient. They will find new ways because they were playful to begin with. They were passionate to begin with. So they have a more intense motivation to continue to reattach in the face of change. Now, those are the things that I liked about the book. The things that I disliked. At the core of the book, we have this concept of the element, and just simply, the discussion of this concept was very unclear. Everything is arranged around it, but at the center, it's like their center is absent. The most important piece in the book is not there, but it's very unclear. So let me read you a passage to demonstrate that. We read that, quote, "The element is the meeting point between natural aptitude and personal passion. When people are in their element, they connect with something fundamental to their sense of identity and purpose and well-being. Many of the people in the book describe finding their element as an epiphany, end quote. So epiphany itself is not really a clear, it doesn't give us much common ground. It's a feeling. It's like, yeah, that element, that undescribable feeling, that, what is the word? Ineffable. That ineffable quality that we all know what we're talking about, but we don't. And the other thing that you see in this passage I just read is that emphasis on nature, your natural aptitude, which I'm in general uncomfortable with, the language, the nature language, that we all have different natures, and that nature is something that survives and persists, different developmental encounters we have, different things that nurture us into being. Don't we know that human beings are who we are, what we are, is to a large extent a product of our upbringing, our development, early childhood development, our linguistic training, our participation in language, in culture. And what we become passionate about, our so-called natural aptitudes, might very well be a result of, or partly a result of, our nurture. So that element, the nature, all those things, they're vague, and they downplay the contribution of nurture, culture, parenting, and education. In my view, my own position, if you ask me what is the element, I would say the element is the person. The person itself is an element. It's unique, irreplaceable, and connected to so many other things. The person within the community, the person connected to other people around them. That's the element, okay? But I know that's not also very clear, but at least it gives us a starting point. We can ask, okay, what else can we learn about person and personhood? But you can't say, what else can I find about the element? Because it's just inherently a vague concept. Something else to clarify is a person is not a type. It is not a personality type, like a Myers-Briggs category of what a personality type can be. A person is a concrete reality, like Jim, Joe, Julie. That's a person. The other things I didn't like was the way examples and anecdotes were used. Yes, examples are good. They're very useful in principle. And there are many examples and anecdotes in the book, but the examples are not explored in depth. Gillian Lynn, Matt Groening, Paul McCartney. After you read about a few of them, they start to sound repetitive. The format of the examples, it's almost like the authors, without knowing, they develop a convention, a writing convention of how they go through the examples. And you realize after a while, example after example, story after story, that they are just all starting to sound the same, because they're all being treated superficially, they're all being treated very briefly, and they're all being treated with an interest in the author's argument, the elements. Yeah, they all didn't know their elements, but then they found it, and they were all, everything, they lived happily ever after. They were happy and healthy and fulfilled after that. Okay? And then repeat that 100 times. Does it really change much? A biography should be a little bit more in depth. Give me fewer examples. Give me fewer examples, but do more justice to the depth of the stories. Okay, so that was one other thing I didn't like. Another thing I didn't like was there wasn't enough synthesis among the different parts of the book. So the book doesn't really have a strong intellectual force that works in your mind and convinces you, persuades you, moves you as a consequence of that compelling unity of the book. Chapters are okay. If you look at chapters, yeah, but the book as a totality is not very strong. And I think the authors might reflectively know that, and that's why they might be compensating. They compensate by telling us in the book. We read, yeah, this is a very interesting, this is a very, not interesting, sorry. This is a very important topic. We should all care about this. And when an author or authors are telling you directly and explicitly that you should care about what they are writing about, it actually, it's not always, but it tends to be a sign that they know they're not doing a good job with the text itself. Anyways, just not enough synthesis. That was that point. Would I recommend this book? I would very weakly recommend it. Not strongly, quite weakly. All right, the three books that I would recommend. I mentioned that The Element is the person, and education is intimately tied. Education is really about persons. And where I get that from is from the works of Professor Sam Rocha, who is a professor of philosopher of education at currently University of British Columbia. Among his books is one very short and very sweet book that I really love. It's called A Primer on Philosophy and Education. So I would recommend that book if you have an interest in education as it relates to the question of what is a person. If you are interested in the criticism of standardized testing, quantification, the bureaucracy of schooling, bureaucracy of public education, which Ken Robinson also criticizes in this book, I would recommend The Tyranny of Metrics by Jerry Muller. And if you're interested in other topics like conformities, being an element is in part about being willing to, being courageous enough to stand out and not conform, not being peer-oriented. If you're interested in the topics of conformity, nurturing, supporting a child's will to be original, to be themselves, I would recommend Hold On to Your Kids by Gordon Neufeld and Gabor Mate. All those three books I've already reviewed on my YouTube channel. If you like to look at a discussion of them or listen to a discussion of those three books, I will provide links to them in the description of the video. I think that's it. The next book that I will discuss is a follow-up book to The Element, which is called Finding Your Element, which is a disaster, I'll tell you now. It's much worse than this book. The Element, published in 2009, is not a very bad book. It's okay. Parts of it were quite interesting. But the follow-up book, published 4 years later in 2013, in that book, the authors completely fall into the trap of self-help culture. They try to do something, and I'll describe that trap and why I think they fell into it in my next video. That's it for now. Please, if you like the video, please like and subscribe to help with the channel. Please check my Patreon page. Patreon, that's it. That's what it's called, page, right? I organize a reading group that meets on Saturdays, noon Eastern time. And I don't know when you will be watching this video, but at different times we are reading different texts. So if you check out the schedule should be, if the meetings are still going on, the schedule and text of the current text and schedule for the reading group is available through that link. And that's it. Join us if you're interested in a weekly discussion group. And yes, I should end the video now. Thank you for listening, and I will be speaking with you in future videos. Bye for now.